Hi everyone listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. It's another episode of Masters of the Craft today, and we've got Rob Jupp with us from Brightstar and Sirius. That's another a fair few different companies within financial services. So thanks for joining us, Rob. If we can just start with, I know it's been a long journey, but if you can talk to me about your financial services journey and what's brought you to where Brightstar and your other businesses are now, that'd be great.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'll do a horribly summarised version because we don't want to lose your listeners after 30 seconds, do we? So I've been in financial services now for just over 30 years. I was out of university in the early 90s. There were no graduate jobs that I fancied. Didn't want to be an accountant, and frankly, the only job that looked like it was paying okay was financial services. So I went to work for a national financial services company which was part of Hambros Bank for a couple of years. Did pretty well, became one of their top advisors, got promoted, became a regional manager, and then at the heady age of 26 decided that being an employee wasn't really for me, and I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I left, started my own mortgage business, mortgage broker, financial services business at 26, and my friends around me thought I was mad because there's a lot more advisors nowadays do take the plunge, but in those days very few did. It was you're a bit sort of weird if you did it. So being a bit sort of weird, I thought, yeah, that's fine, I'll do it. And that was my first business. That grew to a good size. We had just over 40 advisors. We then decided to diversify into mortgage distribution. It was the late 90s, so the UK specialist lending market was starting to grow in its infancy. So we got involved with that. Grew that business to one of the biggest distributors in the country, regularly doing about £1 billion per annum of near prime, specialist prime mortgages. And then, of course, something happened in 07 and 08. It's changed the fabric to the world, and I went from being a hero in financial terms to being a zero in financial terms, and very fortunately able to sell my business to Savills PLC, the global real estate business, FTSE 300 business. Worked there for 2 years, which was the contract I'd agreed verbally. Great guys, but after 2 years it was apparent that I wasn't an employee. I probably wasn't a very good...
Rob, sorry to interrupt. Was that 07, 08? Was that around that time?
08, yeah, 08 to 10. We completed on the sale of the business 4 days prior to Lehman Brothers collapsing. And Lehman Brothers were one of my main clients. So it wasn't a deal that was a deal for significant financial value to me or my family at all. But what it did do, most importantly, is it kept the roof over my head for a couple of years, and it kept a small number, 11 of my co-workers employed for 2 years where people were out of work. So I'll always be grateful for that opportunity, but it wasn't for me. I said to my wife one day, right, I want to go again. I want to start a new business.
How did your wife take that after you've been through it before? Do
you know,
understanding?
Well, I mean, just to give a bit more visualization, we'd already had one son who was 3, and she'd just given birth to our second child. So we had 2 children, under the age of 3. We had a big mortgage, and her natural concern was one of survival. It's like, how are we going to do this? And she knows the sort of person I am. She knows I'm pretty determined and pretty aggressive when I need to be. And she just always believed in. She said, is there a specialist market? I said, there is, but it's not kind of lending at the moment. She said, well, there's not one, is there? I said, no, there's with what's happened over the global economic crisis, there's more people who have been out of work, lost their jobs, been behind on their mortgages and loans. And actually, if we can create this opportunity, we will create an opportunity which will be great for a generation. So, leap of faith. I started with 2 of my closest friends and colleagues that I had in the industry who are still with me almost 13 years later. We started in a little Regis office, big enough for 2 people, but because one of the guys was really skinny, we managed to sort of fit him in the corner. It was a broom cupboard with a window. It's exactly what it was. And we started. It was backs against the wall. It was in the first 6 months touch and go whether we would get through those first 6 months. And this is not the story that people sometimes expect to hear, but it's
a great story though, Rob, because you're right. People will look at you now and look at the business now, look at the businesses now, and I do speak to a lot of people, especially through that 07-08 period, that actually really struggled. It was really hard, and I think that's really important for people to understand that, especially guys that have had it relatively easy recently. If it gets a bit tougher, just about like you said about taking the plunge and just kind of believing that you can do it is a massive.
Yeah, Marcus, it was hellishly difficult. I mean, you'd think we were realistically valuing our business and a quantum of tens of millions of pounds in the summer of 2007, and in the late summer, just a year later, the business was worthless. And actually, trying to get to that point when you're in a position where you're making, objective, sensible, rational decisions based on the absolute trajectory of what you expect, and then 12 months later, or 14 months later to be exact, you're thinking, well, am I going to be able to stay in my house? It's that serious. Am I going to lose everything?
That was difficult. That well, Rob, sorry I keep butting in, but it's really important because a lot of guys haven't been there, and people keep saying how it's similar, the stuff that we've been through or going through is similar to 2008. Can you kind of reassure people that weren't there? This is nothing like it. There's money.
No, absolutely not. No, it's the only similarity is it was deeply unpleasant for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Being deeply unpleasant for a few weeks is deeply unpleasant, but for a few weeks. When 07-08 was deeply unpleasant for a year and a half, and then it was almost more unpleasant for 2 years after that. So we're looking at. Yeah, we're looking at 3 to 4 years in terms of total timeline, and we were almost trying to. The analogy I would use, it was like a massive inferno, where like there's fires all around you. You're surrounded on all sides by fire, and you've literally got one of those garden hoses, and you're just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
You're trying to stay alive, and then when the fires start to diminish, what you have scorched earth. You have an environment that is flat in its savannah, and then you have to construct a sustainable environment that is going to be able to be the new market. And that's the bit I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed in the infancy of the new UK specialist lending market, being at the sharp end of it and creating something that was sustainable. And actually, not that we created something that we wanted to be replicated, but it's a massive compliment that our business model has been replicated by almost everybody that have looked at what we've done, or perhaps looked at what someone's done who copied us and just replicated it.
Would you say, is that too kind of presumptuous to say that you were the first kind of specialist in that market, or were there people around were they knocking around, or do you think you were the first to take that leap after the 2008 situation?
So what we were the first to do is we certainly weren't the first to market, and there were some that managed successfully to trade their way through the credit crunch by massively diversifying their business model, and I think in a few cases having the benefit of a fairly lucrative low-geared property portfolio to be able to deleverage or to leverage up in order to survive. What we were the first to do, Marcus, quite simply put, is to understand that in order for us to do our job really well, we would have to separate individuals into core competencies. So what used to happen is you used to phone up a specialist distributor and you would deal with a person, a little bit like, the one-man band. Depending on who it was you got, they would be able to do everything. But the reality of that skill set was they'd be really good at least one product set, and they'd be really bad at least 2 or 3. So kind of for me, it was a really obvious one. It was kind of like, let's just stick to our knitting. If you're good at a second charge mortgage, why on earth are you doing a bridging loan? If you're good at bridging, why are you doing commercial finance? You can't expect to be a genuine expert in those markets unless you focus full time, all the time in that market. So
I love that. I love that
that's
as
what we
well. I
did,
love
and
that.
it grew and it grew and it grew, and that's what people do now.
Yeah, that is inch wide, mile deep, as we call it in recruitment. Like you can't be a specialist at everything. You can't call yourself a specialist and then be, diversifying into absolutely every different product. So yeah, we're 100% believers in that. I don't even think you can be a good administrator and a good salesperson. I don't think the two are. I think they're the core competencies are so far apart. But so let's go into the kind of the brighter times. Then after 2010, obviously business has picked up. Talk to me about what have you seen over that time in that kind of specialist market? Obviously, I'm looking at all the companies behind you that weren't even. I don't think they're even around then. But what have you seen in that commercial market, and how has it kind of evolved for you?
Yeah, good question. So I think probably if I say from 11 when we started, probably up to 2016. So for that first 5 years.
Yeah.
What you generally found is that people there wasn't that many mortgage advisors. There's far less mortgage advisors than the market needed. And if they got anything a bit unusual and a bit specialist, we'd always get the call and we'd just deal with it for them.
Yeah.
I think what you found is the bigger ones, or the ones that were perhaps a little bit more commercially aggressive, after that thought, okay, well, there's some good income to be had by this, I'll do it myself. And then you found we started to see a real deterioration of customer outcomes when that happened. And then what you found post that is a few that have cut their teeth on clients and probably made mistakes, sometimes to the customer's detriment, sometimes not. Some of them have carried on, and actually they've become okay, and they've created little silos for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a massively competitive environment at the moment. We are up against other companies of scale that look and feel very similar to us. We're up against companies that have decided organically to grow their own proposition, and some of them are really very good. And we're up against often brokers that perhaps just feel like they're going to wing it and try and get these deals through themselves, and can probably.
Are you really up against those though? Are you really up against the winging it because of the specialist market the way it is? Is that, I mean, obviously not competition wise, volume wise, but is that more of a detriment to the market? People having a go.
Yeah, I think we are, because quite simply, if you're up against a competitor, you want to fight like we like, right? You want to be able to have a situation, and I think when we get a call and we're up against someone else, we generally will win, but we don't always get those calls now. So, if you're a customer who needs a specialist mortgage outcome, or a commercial debt, or a debt refinance, or a bridging loan, and you've got someone that tells you that they are an expert and they are qualified, and you can go in and have a look at a website and you can see a few Trustpilot reviews. You go, all right, yeah. If they tell you they're an expert, you're going to believe them and you're going to want to go with them because you just want the solution. And sadly, still, customers don't shop around enough, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I mean, I would expect every time someone deals with us, even if they've been dealing with us for years, absolutely still be prepared to look at other options as well as us to make sure we're doing our job correctly. Because we get it wrong, frankly, we get it wrong for that consumer. You could be talking about a customer detriment of tens of thousands of pounds over a number of years.
But I think that's relevant in the experience you've got as well, isn't it? Just getting it wrong less. I think that's a big, big thing about being in the market for a long time.
I think so. And also what you do is you have the experience of making sure that in the nicest possible way, us being these human beings, we are fallible and we do sometimes make mistakes. So I think what's really important is understanding that when that happens, you have to have systems of control in place in your business to ensure that there's checks and balances in play to make sure that everyone does the job correct all of the time. And when they don't, you've got a safety net there, haven't you?
Yeah. Can we delve into that a little bit more? Because a lot of brokers that listen to the podcast are quite new. They're looking, up and coming, if you like. And I don't think everyone values the process side of things as much as you should. Do you think? I mean, one, what processes do you put in place that you would recommend to anyone? And two, do you need it to grow a business? Do you need those processes?
I think you do in our world, yeah. I think if you're selling a product that is lighter in terms of its touch, its regulation, its consequence, no. But in our world, you do. I mean, when you're dealing with debt, and you're dealing with debt that could be 7, could be 8 figures, or it could just be, it could be 5 figures. It doesn't really matter what the quantum is. It's still magnified. So to answer your question, we have a system which initially will bring up all products available in the market for that product set.
Yeah.
So and then if one of our advisors chooses a product that is not the best value, they have to justify why. Why are you going with that product? And the client has to see that the product that they've selected is not the cheapest product in the market. Now, in a lot of the time it is, and if it isn't, there's a justification why, but there needs to be an audit trail. And then, so the system checks it, there's a load of AI stuff that is in the background powering that, but then we actually have a sales control team that will actually review all files, particularly on a regulated case. They look at the data and they look at the quality of the advice and everything else. And if it's something they're not happy with, and on occasions it might be that they're not happy because there's something missing,
yep,
they won't let the client proceed until the advisor does their job correctly. So what we almost always get complimented on from lenders is the quality of our submissions, but also stuff like AML. The specialist lending market, despite people trying to assure investors it's not, is absolutely a live bed for fraud. If you want to commit fraud, you'll see smaller niche lenders as an easier way of doing it. So we have to be absolutely on our A game, because I'm afraid in this world of charlatans, cheats and fraudsters, they look at specialist lending as a market as a really good place to make a lot of money.
And do you think that's just because it's unregulated, it's more slipped through the net?
Yeah, well, some are regulated, to be fair, but I think because a lot of the lenders are smaller, and the perception is that and they'll be less able to have the expensive systems and controls that perhaps the top 6 or 7 lenders do. So it's really important that we collaborate and we work closely with them to make sure that we are absolutely playing for the same side. I mean, we have that really unusual scenario where we work with customers, so we have to be the client friend, and we have to make sure that they get good advice and everything else. But similarly, we have to make sure that the lender isn't screwed either, so that the lender is getting a safe supply of decent quality business that is going to pay on time, that is going to redeem on time, and is not going to cause them any problems. So we've got that sort of slight imbalance between representing 2 teams, and we have to do that really seamlessly well. Yeah,
good. And just in regards to the unregulated stuff, because obviously, you have to put those checks in place. I'm interested in obviously treating the customer fairly. Resi regulated stuff, it's very by the book. How do you make sure you're doing that in commercial? Because I know that a lot of commercial, there's other things other than cost, that can justify putting someone to a particular, packaging up a case to someone rather than someone else. How do you make sure the customer is getting the best products? Like a bridging lender, you're not looking at 200 surely. There's so many of them out there. How do you make sure? How do you kind of quantify best outcome, not just monetary?
Yeah, so we have the same process, whether it's reg or unregulated, where we do look at cost. And the thing is, the bridging market being a case in point, the top 10 lenders in that market are all lenders that we work with. The bottom 40 lenders in that market are lenders that we wouldn't work with. So we kind of look at the price scenario and go, okay, this is really important, because actually the bridging market is so easy to get deals done with the wrong lender, and the difference in interest rate seriously can be between 5 and 8% per annum.
Massive, isn't it?
Yeah, and we see that. We often see that, and sadly, we still often see that when customers have completed on the wrong deal, the lender has started to behave inappropriately. They've started to put undue pressure on them, and then customers come to us and say, can you help? And you kind of look at the product and you go, my God, that's not the right product for you, and it's not always too late at that point. There is the opportunity to help. but then they've already spent lots of additional monies that they didn't need to do. So yeah, we have to look at both reg and non-reg in the same sort of way. And actually, I don't know, debt is debt, right? Whether you go with a lender that looks and feels really sexy with a great logo and a great website and looks brilliant, or one that doesn't. And actually, the only thing a client's really bothered about, or should be, is the cost of their debt. What is the best value? Because you're not buying brand and websites. You're buying interest rate, right? And the lower that is, the lower the repayments, and the quicker you can pay the loan off, or pay your mortgage off, or do other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's interesting, especially with how brokers are paid as well, because the unregulated market is, everyone's different. You bump it up. I saw a broker actually put on LinkedIn the other day about wouldn't touch a bridging lender that didn't pay X amount proc fee. And to me, that blows my mind, because actually, how is that doing the right thing for your customer? Like, obviously announcing it is a weird thing to do anyway. But
well, that's like absolute suicide. I mean, I suppose the brilliance of that person's stupidity. At least they're being honest about being stupid. I mean,
you're that stupid when you don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's Forrest Gump stupidity, that one, isn't it? Stupid is what stupid does. Yeah.
Good. So let's go back. So, 26 years old, took the leap of faith. Guys that are around that age now. I mean, obviously it's a different market and that kind of thing. But what do you think you need? What do you think to have a long-standing journey in financial services? What kind of characteristics do you think? Like, yeah, that guy's making. Can you spot it now? And what do you think is important?
Yeah, a little bit you can spot it. I mean, I think you've got to have that gene in you, really. I think the first thing that's really, really important is making sure that you're able to stay on your feet on the many occasions when situations, the market, people try and knock you off. You've got to have that real sense of character about you, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, we always complain the new generation of kids growing up, they're great until something goes wrong, and they don't have recovery in their locker. I think in business, any form of business, the ability to survive at all costs is the most important factor, and by that what I mean is, you're often drinking tap water and not vintage champagne. It's a difficult job. You don't get motivated by anyone. You're on your own, and if you need someone to keep telling you you're brilliant and you're going to be okay, well, don't do it, because that doesn't happen.
Have you noticed the difference? And again, I'm not going to get into the generational youth of today stuff, but have you noticed the difference? Obviously, having interviewed since kind of mid-90s, the difference in maybe resilience, or the difference in characteristics, or have you had to change things up when recruiting? Have you looked at?
Yeah, resilience is the key word. Yeah, I think we look, if we're looking for someone in an entry level role, I think we look for resilience. We want to understand. Talk to me about when things have gone wrong in your life, what happened, how you overcome them. That's really key.
Yeah.
And I think what we want to do is we want people that are that have Teflon skin. We want people that are able to outthink conventional thinking processes when things go wrong. So I think, coming back to your original question, I think resilience is absolutely key. You have to be resilient. Yeah. You also have to be self-motivated, because no one's going to do that for you. And I also think you've got to just be a little bit less concerned with what anyone else is doing, because social media is the biggest evil in terms of giving people an impression that everything is doing brilliantly, and everyone's driving fast cars and living in big houses and going on.
The thing is with that though, Rob, do you not like? Everyone knows. Well, you assume everyone knows. Because I speak to loads of business owners, so I know we're all pretty much in the same boat. Some are doing a little bit better than others, and that kind of thing. But do you think people really buy into everyone's bullshit all the time, or do you think that's a generational thing? Just because they didn't grow up?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I genuinely hope not, and I think there's probably there's been a bit of a change. I think you kind of, I think sort of less is more now. People that seem to brag have a sense of being a bit toxic, actually. People that say, look, this is what I've got and this is how I'm doing it. I think a lot of people start going, well, number one, have you? Is this honest? Are you being honest? And number two, what have you done in order to get that quick? So I think, trying to talk about being normal and perhaps frailty and, things that are slightly different in your life that perhaps cause you not to be perfect and come across as being perfect is a lot more refreshing and a lot more real.
Yeah.
Because I've never met an honest person that doesn't have frailty. I mean, anyone that does is just deluded, because they have. We all have. So actually, I think people like to see a little bit of that. And I think the bit I don't like, and I think I'm probably not alone in that, is these people that just every day have to flash it in your face. It's like that's what they do. But I don't know. I just don't like it. Don't like it.
Yeah.
It's oversharing. That's what it is. It's oversharing.
Yeah. So, it's a weird camp for me, because obviously I get most of my business from LinkedIn, so I have to share. But at the same time, we don't ever tell people like figures or why you're there. You have to give away, like, case studies are great. Actually showing why you're good at something is great. But you're right. The kind of, I mean, no one wants to see my Fiat 500 anyway. But the flash car on LinkedIn every day and that kind of thing, it just stinks a bit. It's not.
It's just tiresome. It's not real, and there's no skill in having a flash car. I can do you a finance contract for a flash car.
Yeah.
If you want to upgrade that Fiat 500 to a Ferrari for a day, I can sort that out for you.
only for LinkedIn for the day. I see. I
Yeah.
need my profile picture.
Or
Doing,
just for one of your other recruiters. There'll be plenty of there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, they've all got one. Yeah, no money to put petrol in it though. That's all brilliant, all really useful stuff. So, if not just characteristics, but if someone's looking at doing it now, say they were looking either maybe they're a little bit into their career, or they're looking to take a step into set up their own brokerage, or heaven forbid packaging, as competitors. What kind of advice can you give to someone? I know we've gone through resilience, but what kind of advice? What else can we tell people that are looking to take that step? Maybe even into like being self-employed or
yeah. Well, okay, patience is another thing. I mean, what you expect to do when you're originally thinking of doing a business, you have a business plan, you have a cash flow forecast, it all looks and feels really straightforward, and you go, God, I'm guaranteed to be successful. It's that easy. And Marcus, you'll know from your own business, it doesn't work out like that ever. The best laid plans. So lots of contingencies, lots of understanding that things will go wrong, things will be different. The cost of labour might be more expensive than what you factored it. Your pipeline might take that much longer to go through. Your transactional rate, your abortive transactional rate might be lower than what you factored.
So a couple of percentages here and there.
Yeah,
it
makes all the difference. And then when taking the plunge and deciding you want to do it is a massive first step. Then when you do it, you're then fully committed. So you've got to be all in. You can't be. I've seen too many people that have spent far too much time on their brand and their logo and their website, and then it's their lifestyle business from word go. And if however hard you think you're working by working with your current employer, however hard you think you're working, you haven't worked that hard from when you started, and you'll only be successful if you work damn hard. That is the secret to success. Is you've got to work harder than you've ever worked before. You've got to be far more resilient. And then, when you've got to a point and you proved everybody wrong, you've actually survived. You got through those first formative couple of years, and then you start going, right, well, I'm going to recruit. Obviously, having people like you, Marcus, I'll give a plug for your business, are important because, you guys get recruitment better than most people do, I'm sure. But also, when you take people on, you've then gone through a new stage. You've now got pastoral support. You've now got the ability to have to motivate, to generate a culture to ensure that retention is key. And as you move on and on and on and on, you have to have systems and control in situ to place. Someone once said to me, any decent business is like a decent building. It will only survive if its foundations are deep enough and strong enough to last the test of time. And at the time, it was a Scottish guy. I didn't really understand what he was saying because he's a very broad Glaswegian accent. But oh my God, it's so true because putting investment into boring stuff like tech, risk and governance, quality control, they are crucial if you're going to scale and grow your business.
Do you think that's where people make the mistake when they kind of get big and then they go, shit, got to work backwards, I haven't put it in place? Do you think it's really important to get that operational, maybe the boring bit of actually what makes a good business.
Yeah, I
Get
do.
it in place
Because
first.
actually, building upwards is actually really easy, right? Taking on new people is really easy. Up to a critical mass, that it becomes really difficult when the infrastructure isn't strong enough to cope.
Yeah.
So, you haven't got a decent finance team that can pay people quickly and can ensure that their credit control is upbeat. All these things like, cash flow management, which you don't think when you're starting a business, credit control and cash flow management, that's going to be a key objective. You don't. Why
No,
would you? It's
no,
not
no
something
one
you think
thinks
of.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
you wouldn't. But actually getting your invoices paid within a timely manner is really business critical to survive.
What is
More
funny actually
businesses.
about that in regards
Yeah.
to cash flow, Rob, is that everyone does tell you that, but you don't really get it until you're in it.
Mm.
As in cash flow, for small businesses, it's massive.
Well,
I
more
think,
businesses fail from cash flow than they do anything else. They run out of money.
yeah, but it's huge, isn't it? And I don't think that's talked about enough. We kind of everyone knows like cash flow is important and stuff like that, but when you're setting up the business, like it's so key to to failing and not. I think
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
massive one that we probably
yeah.
don't look at as much. Just you touched on something then, Rob. I'm just
Mm.
going to go back to that, sorry, because you talked about kind of retention and culture, and obviously you've built decent businesses there.
Mm.
How do you? Let's talk about culture. So how do you build that from the start? Where does that start from, and how do you continue it? Because it's harder as you get bigger, isn't it? So that's the tricky thing, not becoming a corporate monster that doesn't start out the way or doesn't end the way it starts out. How do you
Yeah,
maintain that
well,
culture?
it can get trickier as you get bigger, but actually it can also, dare I argue against itself, can get easier. So to answer that original question, culture's got to come from within. It's got to come from you. As the leader of your business, you set the agenda of culture, good or bad. And actually, sadly in a lot of cases across a range of sectors, the culture is set badly by the founder or the MD or the CEO or the leader. And my culture has always been a very people-centric culture. I've always believed that people can be absolutely brilliant, and with the understanding that we all have personal frailties. That if you can stick with someone during a journey, you can understand them. And we've done personality profiling from day one, so we really get to understand now the people we work with. Then what you can do, and you say from the outset, as in the first time the first interaction interview, this is our culture. This is what we do. This is our expectation, and we always get people to spend half a day in before we give them a job offer, because we want them to see the culture themselves. Then what you've done straight away is you've said, this is our culture. If you don't like it, don't come here.
Yeah.
Right? This is our culture. We believe this is right. If you can see the value in that, then you're going to be a good stakeholder from day one. And then it's trying to deliver. And we have one of the things we did early on, as soon into our business as 2014. So three and a bit years. We recruited a CPO, a chief people officer, who came in, and her job, he's still with the business now, was about people development and culture. So in 2019, we won the Sunday Times Best Companies to Work For, first in the country.
Amazing.
Small companies below 250 employees. And then in 2020, we went in it again, because we wanted to do well again, and we won it for a second year in a row first. But also what we did is we achieved the highest point score in the history of the Sunday Times Best Companies to Work For 21 previous years.
Wow.
In any sector at any company. Now, you don't do that by chance. You don't just turn up and go, oh right,
No,
yeah.
no, that's not
It's
just
a
a
process.
we lucked in, yeah.
I started the culture, and frankly, I would have been unable to have that culture spread as quickly if Claire hadn't have been part of this business, and she has done.
Yeah.
And then she then has learning champions and culture champions in the business, who are the bedrock of our business. So I might be the cornerstone, but I've got bricks all the way around me holding this up.
Actually, let's talk about that. Actually, that's a really interesting point. Just about having those people around you. How important is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth. How important is it? We know it's important. But talk to me about the kind of the structure you've had to put in place, people-wise, to make you so successful. So what how do you go about that? How do you work out where your skills maybe aren't as strong as someone else's, or how do you work that to build a team?
So where I am now is as a direct result of mistakes I've made in the past. So Marcus, I thought in previous businesses that what you had to do is you had to surround yourself with people that were like you, right? That had the same, passion, enthusiasm, aggression as you, right? And what that makes you is very one-dimensional. What it doesn't do is it doesn't provide creative, fluid discussion. So the difference with this business versus the last business is personality profiling has been centric from day one. So we use a Discovery Insights model. There's others around, but we use an old Carnegie type model. And we 4 or 5 weeks after someone has started with us, so we don't use it as a condition of employment because you just accept you're going to employ people of all. We're not always looking. We're not looking. Invariably, you kind of know now, instinctively and intuitively, when you spend a bit of time, what profile someone is. But
that's
you get
really
them
interesting because we actually profile before, but we don't make it a be all and end all result of the thing. We just need to know that someone has the mind, or is in flow when they're doing the job that they're applying for.
Yeah. No, I get that, and actually, there's a lot of sense to be done from that. But so I think because we've used it for such a long time now, and we've understood it so intricately well, we kind of get it. So effectively what we do with our teams is we now construct teams where we have so many different color energies as part of it. So I have 2 main exec teams within my portfolio, and those exec teams have the 4 broad color energies. They have at least one person of each color energy. So the thing is now we've got really dynamic, fluid debate that I'll want to be going fast and frenetic and just whatever the consequences. And what I won't be thinking about is the implications on people that can't move as quickly, which is most people. But my colleagues who are green will worry about what it means to the team. Our yellows will want to motivate, inspire and lead, and will be the sort of people that people will want to follow. And our blues will be giving us a real good plan of action, how we're going to get there. So actually, you've got the destination. You know how you're going to get there. You know how you're going to inspire and motivate people, and you understand, what you're going to need to do to keep people happy along the route. And actually, when you do that, you go, oh my God, it's so straightforward.
Yeah, it does seem really obvious when you put the different ways. You have the colours, we have the energies, but similar thing. It does seem obvious when you put people in it and you see it working. I know not everyone buys into it, but I mean, I'm a massive believer in it, and obviously you are. I just think working out how someone flows in a business and how it can add value to that particular group is super important.
And also sort of managing out the conflict, right? So I think, the number one problem of preventing collaboration is conflict. It's just people not getting on, people not liking each other. And understanding, actually, that people that don't like each other are generally people with conflicting personalities. And actually, if you understand each other's reasons why that person is your difficult person, and then you behave and understand how you can behave differently, then they don't become a challenge anymore, and you become far more cohesive and collaborative within the workplace.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny that because my ops manager is on the complete other end of the spectrum to me, analytical, action plan. I'm bigger picture, and it's true. We can have really good heated discussions about things because we know that you don't see it like I do, and you won't because that's not the way your brain works. But actually, like you say, then it just makes for such easier collaboration because no one's trying to wind anyone up. We just don't think the same. And if you can have a look at it from someone else's perspective, it's incredible. For
every decision that is made with discussion and collaboration is a better decision than what it would have been without it, without exception. And as long as, and the thing is, as an exec team now, we are so fast in our delivery of each other's personalities that we all instinctively understand that if we go too far or we don't go far enough, or we're too organised to a point where it won't happen, or we don't feel we can be motivational enough, it won't get off the launch pad, and we won't be successful in what we do. Yeah,
and do you? I mean, it's hard to fight an ego if you like, being the top of the food chain. But have you always been like that, or have you just realised it works better when because obviously you're going to get people not agreeing with some of your ideas because you're an ideas person. So that's naturally, I say that again with my team, that if I've come up with 8 a day, there's probably 2 that are good. So they have got to sift through a fair amount. Has that always been the case? Are you good at, because it's hard as a business owner, are you good at taking on board what everyone else says? Is it like a voting system? Do you have overall, how do you get to those decisions if not everyone is going to agree?
Okay, so to answer your question, I haven't always been good. No, I think I was certainly in my earlier career very much an autocrat. Very much it would be my way or the highway. And of course, I had people around me that always believed that my way was the right way, and that made for some really bad, catastrophic decisions.
Yeah.
I think you have to accept, and this is going to sound a bit dramatic what I'm about to say, that I am a fundamentally flawed human being, and that I will make some really bad decisions if I'm left to my own devices. Yeah, I'll make some really good decisions if I'm surrounded by people that can make my decisions better. So if one of my stakeholders is has concerns and voices concerns, the alarm bells will ring for me now, because I would have not thought through that particular thought process closely enough. So then I'll go and I will be, I'll go, okay, well, explain to me why you think that. Show me why that's the case. And ultimately, if I think that they're wrong and I'm right, having had the discussion, then it's my right to push an unpopular thing through. And I can think of a very, very small number of occasions over the course of the last 12 years where I have done that, because I haven't needed to. And actually, I can think of an awful lot more instances where my gut reaction was to go with something. Having had discussions, I didn't go for it, and with hindsight, it was the best decision, because I would have made a mistake. So
do you find yourself having to come away from those conversations and then make the decision? Because I don't know if this is a personal thing for me, like I need to work on that as part of my kind of self-awareness, but when I'm really excited about giving something, this is the project and then they come back with a lot of people put a lot of pushback. If I go away, I realise they're right. But if I kind of make that decision at that point, do you think? I suppose you just get better at it with time. But
I think my age is now with a 5 on instead of like you with a 4 on. I think it's just maybe a little bit more living, a little bit more acceptance that the more times your decision is changed with an outcome that ends up being better, the more you think that's the right culture. And that's all it is. I look back and think decisions I make on my own and don't listen to anyone else are more often than not likely to be higher risk decisions. Decisions that are made with the benefit of a group of critical friends around me are more often than not better decision making. Well, therefore, why would I not deliver anything other than that collaborative decision making? Because it works. It really, really works.
It does. I think that's really interesting. I think that's really poignant for. I know I keep saying this about it, just like young brokers, or brokers that are looking to go out on their own, or set up with people. You can't just have a load of yes men, because that feels good. That feels good to be right all the time, but you're generally not. So it's important to that collaboration. Just in regards to collaboration, actually, Rob, I know it's important in your business, but I feel like with social media, brokers are getting a little bit more collaborative, and you are kind of hopefully helping each other. Have you seen a change in that, or do you think it's always been that way, where financial services is a relatively friendly industry?
Yeah, I do. I think that the vast bulk of people are really decent and get on really well, and I have to say a lot of my friends that I've got now I've had for lots of years, and those true friendships really came to fore in 07, 08 when we were all losing everything. And I think I now look at my business has become nice and successful, and that's brilliant. But part of the reason for that is we've got such strong relationships with so many lenders, and that those relationships are built on many years of working together and supporting each other. And actually, during the first 2 months of COVID, I made a point in every week making sure I spoke to every colleague in a lender at least once a week, and a lot of them, said to me afterwards, I didn't realise quite, but they said to me afterwards, I was the only one in that week to say, how are you? How are you getting on? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And it meant a lot. And actually, it meant a lot to me when it was the other way around as well. Because it's generally when things are going really well that people pat you on the back and will cover your glory. When things are going not so well, you can lose a bit of airtime. You can lose a little bit of a following, and that's the time when you really appreciate friends.
Yeah, I think it is important, that relationship management or the relationship building, that people kind of miss out on when they make it transactional. Like, we've had it quite good for a good amount of years, and I think as we get into a slightly tougher time, I think it goes to show who has actually worked hard on relationships and who has perhaps been treating it as a bit of a cash cow. So you do reap the benefits from that, don't you? Even no, it's not no financial gain for you to asking how people are initially, but actually to have a strong foothold in this industry, I think it's really important to.
Yeah, well, the only product we've got is ourselves, right? I mean, we sell at very best a marginally dull product. It's not. You don't get.
It's really exciting. It's fun.
Oh yeah, it's about exciting as a cup of cold sick, really. I mean, but you have to just accept, right? It's a product to get people what they want, but it's a people connected product that actually at times, during Liz Truss and Quatain's mini budget, we had 602 cases that were either pulled, as in the lender said, I'm not doing those anymore, or were repriced upwards quite considerably. And of those 602, honestly, I mean, that's the challenge. You deal a business in scale and quantum. When things go wrong, the numbers of problems just generate. But what we were able to do is a lot of those customers got the product that they'd thought they were getting because of our relation, not just my relationship, but the relationship of the team over lots of years saying, look, okay, I realise this product is going to be, you're going to be underwater with that product now. It's going to cost you money, but this client is exchange contract, right? You committed to this. You're going to have to lose money. I'll help you. I'll reduce my fee and I'll reduce my prompt fee, and I will go all in so we go through this together. Yeah. But you've got to help, and I think people really appreciate it at times like this. It was easier just to stand under your duvet and just say, oh, it'll all be all right in 3 months' time. But actually, there's clients and brokers that needed that support there and then. And I felt as a business, we really dug in to try and help them.
Yeah. And you'll reap the benefits as the market picks up. Out of interest, this quarter, have you noticed that? Have you noticed the pickup? Has it made a big difference? Obviously, I know Q4 was, no matter what you read on social media, Q4 was hard.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
how have you found it this year? Is it kind of bounce back a bit?
Well, we did a slightly less bullish statement when we delivered our really good financial results last year, where we predicted we always look at double digit. We predicted a 6% growth, which I thought was really good because we expect this year to be a lot tougher. And I have to say, the start of the year has been much better than any of us predicted. But in certain product lines, buy-to-let being the main one, we're at least 35% down versus this time last year. So some product lines are doing really good, and others, buy-to-let, residential mortgages, new build mortgages, are really struggling right now. But I think, fortunately for us, and it is not luck, it's by design, one product line was never going to be more than 25% of our total turnover. So you kind of, as certain products start to phase out because they're not needed or they're not needed so much, other products start to come to the fore, and you can then grow those product lines because we've got really good, financial data, and we understand which ones are really strong, which ones perhaps aren't strong, and we can be flexible between those.
Do you think that obviously helps being that kind of one-stop shop in regards to, like you say, if buy-to-let's gone down and bridging comes up, then it covers you all the time, and also covers your customers because there's always an option for them.
Yeah, I do, and I think
track back the other way,
and also looking for income silos and product silos that give vertical integration. So rather than just always dealing with property, why don't we deal with non-property, i.e. asset finance, be it insurance? So they're complementary product lines because a lot of our customers will need those, but they're just buying those things through other people. So why shouldn't they be buying through us? So it's kind of just understanding that the marketplace and being fluid and dynamic and responsive enough to ensure that you are absolutely just ahead of that curve. You change just before it changes you.
Yeah. And again, do you think that's a team thing as well, where you can, I suppose that's a time in the market as well. There's lots of things that the benefit of having that time in the market is you see things changing a little bit quicker, I suppose.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I suppose one of the benefits of having so many wrinkles on my face is it does belie the fact that I'm old, I've been around for a while. But I think the other thing, I was talking about foundations, having data, having lots of data in your business. People underestimate the value of data, right? Data tells you everything you need to know. It tells you trends, it tells you direction of flights, it tells you decisions that you need to make that you perhaps would make just by instinct or by gut, all these things. Well, it's my gut. Data is much more effective than gut because it actually is telling you all the information there. So we have a business that's very data hungry. We have lots of data available for us to make really quick, decisive decisions before it becomes business critical.
I think that's really funny enough about the data, because I always used to do a lot on gut before I got good at what I do. But it's funny that we say at the moment, like, we no longer want to say I feel in the business. I feel like it needs this. We can't. It has to follow data. But like you say, if you follow data, even down to obviously recruitment is our side, but when you next need to recruit, and what you need to recruit for, and that kind of thing. It can't be like I feel that's going to pick up. You can see it, can't you? And then it's much less emotional. It runs like a machine.
Yeah, and you can be really granular with where you start your data sets there. So instead of looking at number of completions, you go right the way back to amount of initial inquiries. That's what you look at, inquiries for a particular product set, and you have that early warning scenario that if the phones and the emails and the sites are becoming less busy with those type of inquiries, there's a trend developing here over a period of time. And as that trend is developing, you need to be responsive and adaptable to ensure, in a little bit like Darwinism, that you're not the most intelligent species, but you're one most able to adapt to the environment that you're in. Because that's the thing, Marcus, let's be fair, in your world, in mine, in every world, the one thing that's guaranteed is change is never present, and you have to just not fight it, just accept it's going to be there, and use every matrix that gives you an early foresight on the direction of flight that's likely to go. And data is that.
Love it. Yeah, the profits in the data. I'm a big believer in it. I wasn't. Oh, and then I was wrong. So it's it's really interesting, especially.
Well, maybe people like you and I don't deal with the delivery of data that well, but that people in the business that are good at analysing data analysts, that can come with you with a, I would imagine you're probably a red yourself, but as a red personality, we want quick, fast information to be able to make a decision. We don't want pages and pages and pages of data, because it will be wasted. We're not business critical enough in terms of our concentration to be able to look at it. But
I'm exactly the same. It was the game changer for me. It wasn't like I suddenly got better. It's like I suddenly got someone in the business who understood data better than me.
Exactly
and then
right.
said, this is what we need because of this, and then I get it then. Because spreadsheets to me are spreadsheets. I hate admin. I'm not that way inclined. The detailed stuff, but actually knowing that data is important, but having someone that can read it and give me the important bits is really important. But I suppose, like you said before, about having people in your team, just surround yourself with people that are good at what they are, or better at the stuff you
and they are. The person that does it for you is a load better than you doing that, because that's why you're employing them.
She loves it. She does something I don't like doing, and she's 10 times better at it.
And she's got a skill set of doing it. And let's not look at people like your colleague and my colleague as being odd. They're not odd. They're really good. They're just not good at doing what we're doing, and we're not good at doing what they're doing. And it's kind of that collaborative approach. Actually, if we all do what we're really good at doing, 100% how good at we're doing it, you stick all those component parts together, and it's a bit cheesy, but you've got like a 400% improvement, as opposed to being 100% of just you. You've got 4 people, etc. It's just great.
Do you know what? And it might sound cheesy to some people, but if they don't buy into it or they have never looked at it, but it makes things so much easier as well. People doing stuff that you're not good at 10 times better than you is not rocket science. That just, you would take that on any part of your business. Yeah,
and being, like we played rugby, right? A rugby team is a great example of every single component part of that team in that player doing something really, really well.
Yeah.
And if you're a fullback, you've got to be good at catching the ball, kicking the ball at notice. You've got to be good as a tackler as the last line. If you're a hooker, you've got to be able to throw straight darts, and you've got to be able to hook the ball, and you've got to be able to keep the front line of that scrum up, so you don't give penalties away.
Although I am a prop, and I think I'd be very exceptional on the wing. I just don't think they've ever wanted to play me there.
Well,
I do think I can.
I had my head firmly near your backside because I was a second row.
Really?
So but we all have a role, and actually,
Yeah.
if you've played any level of competitive sport, you understand the team dynamic much better, don't you? You understand you can't be everywhere all the time, and that if you don't get your penalties as a front row, and you don't sort of unstabilise your opponent there, if you're tight head, you're loose head, then actually you're not going to win scrums, and you're not going to get points, and you're not going to get points on the board, and you're not going to get yardage. So it's the same in business.
Rugby's actually a really good example, isn't it? Just because of the different skill sets you need.
Yeah.
It's not like it's so different all over the pitch, but together it makes a team, doesn't it?
The very best teams are the very best teams, not full of great individual players. They're the best teams, and the best teams haven't always got the best players, but they're the best teams.
Have you ever had to look at? Oh, sorry, I've kept you twice as long as I said I would. But have you ever had to look at? Have you ever had anyone great individually that doesn't fit in your team? How do you work that? Is it a fit in and get out, or is it a you've got a big biller but they're not quite fit? How do you deal with that as someone that's been there a while?
It would have happened. I can't think of anybody straight at hand, but if it would have happened, well, I tell you when we've got it wrong. When we've got it wrong with recruitment is when we haven't followed a really good agreed process. When we don't follow a process, we get it wrong. We went through a spell of making bad recruitment decisions, and we made bad recruitment decisions because our people that were recruiting did not do what we all agreed we needed to do, and therefore the process was circumvented because we felt it didn't need to be done anymore. And then we made bad decisions because we didn't fully get that person, we didn't fully integrate that person into the culture, and there was either they're not up to the level that we need to, and they're not going to get, or we didn't tell them enough about our business, so it was a bit of a slow burner. So
do you feel like holding yourselves accountable for it? Was that like a consciously competent thing or unconsciously competent thing where you get so good at something you just cut corners, or was there part of the process to just cut out, or? I
think if you get some success, you become complacent. Actually, I was going to use the term cocky. You just get complacent. You start thinking actually that recruitment. You start thinking that you've got the Midas touch, and you know who's going to be good in your business, and you go, I don't need this process because I know, because I've always shown that I know, because I've got all these great examples. Yeah. But actually,
because you followed that process.
Yeah, correct. And actually, there are times when I can genuinely see that we've actually scared people off at interview because they've looked at our business and they've gone, I don't want it. I don't want to be part of that. And that's really good because then you understand actually there is a mismatch there between us and them, and that's absolutely fine. You're allowed to have mismatches. But I think, when you make a recruitment decision and when you get someone on board, you look at them as a lifer. I mean, invariably people in the main won't be. Our retention is very, very high, but you've got to behave like you're going to work together forever. And that
what, Rob? Funnily enough, we have this thing, and I know you can't follow it, but we have it going to that mindset of imagine if you could never fire anyone. How much harder you have to work as a manager? How much harder you have to work in interviewing? How much harder you have to work to make sure the culture fits? And I know it's not realistic, but if everyone had that mindset, I mean, there'd be less people failing probations and stuff because you couldn't get rid of them. So if you couldn't fail anyone, you would have to work really hard initially to get them in, and two, just to manage any problems. I think it's like you said. I think that's how retention grows. It's just having that lifer mindset, like you just said.
Yeah, and I think also when people don't work out, and they don't work out from time to time in any environment, including our own, that you accept actually that it's as much our responsibility as it is the person that hasn't worked out, because maybe we made a bad decision, maybe we didn't give them the support and love that they needed.
Maybe used the wrong recruiter.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. Hey, yeah, I mean, quite possibly.
But again, it's understanding the process. I mean, recruiters should stay accountable for not understanding a business's process as well. You know, I think that's part of our
Yeah.
job as well. It's not we're not CV sifters, we're consultants. So if you don't get the process, if you don't understand the culture of someone, then but you know,
Well,
it works for everyone. If everyone stays accountable, I think
yeah,
you
yeah.
learn, don't you?
You do, and actually, mate. But you know, the best way of building up your knowledge base is to make mistakes and learn from them, right? You know, person who's never made a mistake has never made anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I must have made loads then because I cock up all the
Every
time.
day, yeah,
But
every day, 3 or 4 big mistakes. I just try not to make the same mistake, you know, more than once. You know,
yeah, I think
couple of
that as well.
occasions.
You just got to get better, haven't you? Just there are little incremental steps to improve yourself and your team, etc. But do you know what, Rob? That's been really useful. I've kept you for double the time that I was going to, so I really appreciate it. I could
No
chew your ear
worries.
off all day. But yeah, so that's Rob Jupp from Brightstar. We didn't even touch on the Sirius Group as well, which I would have loved to have done, but we will. I'm sure I'll grab you again. I can't fit it all into one podcast, but I really appreciate your time, and we'll have Rob's socials and also Brightstar's and Sirius Group's socials attached to this. Anyone listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube, I really appreciate your time, Rob, today. So thanks very much for that, and I'll speak to you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you, Marcus. Take care.